Meeting of the Select Committee has been convened for consideration of committee stage of the Criminal Law Extraterritorial Jurisdiction Bill 2018. Before we begin, members are reminded of the long-standing parliamentary practice to the effect that members should not comment on, criticise or make charges against either a person outside the Houses or an official, either by name or in such a way as to make him or her identifiable. I also remind people to please switch off their mobile phones as they interfere with the sound recording equipment. We are joined by Deputy Charles Flanagan, Minister for Justice and Equality, and his officials, and you're all very welcome. There are no amendments proposed to the bill before us for consideration. Before proceeding to deal with each of the sections and the bills progressing through committee stage, I'd like to invite the Minister if he has any opening remarks that he might like to make at this point. Minister.
Thank you, Caoimhghín. And very briefly to say that I'm pleased to be with you this morning, joined on my left by official John Gary and Maeve Kenny. Pleased to be here following second stage in the Dáil last week, led by Minister Stanton. Members will be aware this is a short but nevertheless important piece of legislation, and it is required to enable ratification of the Istanbul Convention on combating violence against women and domestic violence. I want to acknowledge the work of this committee last year, in particular on the matter of the new domestic violence regime, and a short time before that on the very important Victims of Crime Act. So this is the final piece in that suite to enable ratification. I'm very keen, Caoimhghín, that we would be in a position to ratify at the earliest possible opportunity. Members will be aware of the time frame involved. I fully appreciate issues that are to be raised today in terms of the debate, and thank you for having me.
It's not at all, Minister. We got the request and we've accommodated at the first opportunity. So we will proceed. As I've said, there are no amendments, so I'm taking Section 1 of the bill, and the question is that Section 1 stand part of the bill. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Section 2, that Section 2 stand part of the bill. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Section 3, that Section 3 stand part of the bill. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Again, no amendments as we proceed through each of the sections. That Section 4 stand part of the bill. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. That Section 5 stand part of the bill. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
And that brings us to the schedule. Each of the sections having now been addressed. And the question is that the schedule be the schedule to the bill. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Moving on to the title. That this be the title to the bill. An act to extend the criminal law of the state to certain conduct engaged in outside the state, and in that regard to give effect to certain provisions of the Council of Europe Convention on preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence done at Istanbul on the 11th of May 2011. For that purpose, to amend the Criminal Justice Mutual Assistance Act 2008 and to provide for related matters. Is that agreed?
It's agreed, yeah.
Agreed. As consideration of the bill has been completed, in accordance with Standing Order 90, the following message. I beg your pardon, Jack, you wish to come in?
No, I just was going to ask the Minister,
Deputy
obviously this has gone through rapidly through the House and to the committee. When do you expect it to be fully enacted and commenced? I know with Brexit legislation, just because it's obviously full support for what it is. It's sort of interest.
Early March.
Okay. I'll proceed.
Yeah.
Oh, right. The following message will be sent to the Clerk of the Dáil. The Select Committee on Justice and Equality has completed its consideration of the Criminal Law Extraterritorial Jurisdiction Bill 2018 and has made no amendments thereto. I again thank the Minister and his officials for attending here this morning, and I advise that the Select Committee is adjourned sine die and that the Joint Committee will... Yes, absolutely.
Can I just very briefly acknowledge the engagement this morning, which I take, Caoimhghín, as a strong message from this committee of the committee's support for the legislation. I very much value that, and that will allow me at a very early time, in fact within the next hour, to proceed to the Business Committee, inform the Business Committee that we have dealt with our business this morning through you, Chair, and hope that we could proceed to the next stage over the next few weeks, notwithstanding the legislative priorities on the matter of the withdrawal of the UK from the European Union. But I take the swift passage here this morning. I won't say endorsement, because it was given due consideration. Following that due consideration, I'm happy to report a strong message of support here, and that will assist me in my application to the Business Committee to have the next stage listed for next week, in the hope that, as Deputy Chambers has indicated, that we could proceed and have the ratification during the month of March.
Thank you, Minister. And as I was just in the process of indicating, the Select Committee is adjourned sine die, and the Joint Committee will commence at almost half an hour's time, at 9:45. That's the appointed time. I'm not able to commence earlier, despite the fact that we have completed our business earlier than anticipated. So we suggest you have a coffee and come back for 9:45 on the button. Go raibh míle maith agaibh.